If you look at that chart, that's one of the slides from a presentation I'm giving this week. The red line represents the big 4 banks on COMEX that are short. The green line represents the top big eight bullion banks. If you notice that there are 8 banks right now short the largest concentrated short position on any commodity ever traded in the history of the COMEX market in silver. Now, why the hell would that happen? Of course, followed number 2, platinum, gold, palladium. So, the 4 precious metals that are monetary metals as much as anything are being suppressed by 8 banks to a degree that the COMEX market has never, ever, ever seen. And when you talk about the CFTC is supposed to protect against collusion, against price fixing, well, they're really doing a shitty job, because this is exactly what they're supposed to protect against. Silver is a small market. It is minuscule, the size of most of these other markets. And look at the concentrated short position of 4 and 8 big banks that are holding the price down. And what beats them at this game are countries like India, who are standing for delivery and took almost 700 million ounces from the West in the last 2.5 years. And then they just, because they have this deal with United Arab Emirates where they don't have to pay duties. Last year in 2023, they did $2.2 million worth of silver imports from January to April. United Arab Emirates, India did from them. And now over the same time frame this year, 1.44 billion worth of silver imported, a 654-fold increase. They're buying silver wherever they can. And they're using the suppression of these idiots right here, these 8 banks who are holding the price down, to reposition. And that is how they win. No one ever stood for delivery. It is how you win, because all of this selling right there, you're talking way, way more silver that is in contract form than they have the ability to deliver if called to the carpet. And this is how it all ends poorly. And when you see that chart, it should really explain a lot of things. And everyone, I think, where we were all wrong was assuming that the BRICS would have their own currency, like the euro. No. Every country will have their own autonomous currency. And if you do very bad with your economy, it's going to have problems with the settlement on creating the unit currency. So this way, each country is not beholden like the euro was to one central authority, and like the Bundesbank. Instead, they can all run their own affairs, build their own economies, and settle with one another in a local or in a common settlement currency pegged to the only other tier 1 asset in the world. And they can all have it within their own borders. Do you not see how this is unfolding? What does this do to the dollar? Bang! All at once. It collapses, because everyone realizes holding the dollar is an errand's fool, and holding the treasury, you're an idiot, because they'll confiscate it from you and give it to buy weapons to the country you're in a war with. The media is not telling us what's happening. Spend a couple of days researching websites from around the world, and I think you might believe and look at things a little bit differently. Not you, but all of you out there who are wondering, the same thing. So I don't begrudge anyone, even those that are well-read. I would just question maybe the things that people are reading are the wrong things, and getting your information from people like Chris and others out here, the alternative media, is it very important right now. And doing a little bit of due diligence on your own is very, very important.
I think the thing that really has me intrigued and has me focused is the Project MBridge and the unit currency, which we talked about last week on the show. To me, this is connecting of the dots that I've been trying to put together for a very, very long time, where we have the BIS behind the Project MBridge, along with China, Hong Kong, Thailand, and the United Arab Emirates, in a system that is not compatible with US dollars. We have Saudi Arabia, the largest producer of oil in the world, who is now signed on as a full participant to Project MBridge in a system that is not compatible with US dollars. We have Delma Rousseff, the head of the BRICS New Development Bank, who says, in principle, we've agreed upon a new settlement currency, if you will, called the unit. All of these things I talked about on your show last week, but to me, it is the most important thing, because what it really does is I think it lights the fuse to the dollar, to the reality that countries will have far less incentive to hold treasuries. Aside from the weaponization, we now know that gold will be very pivotal in this new unit. And if you read the white paper on the unit, it says the gold that each nation uses for the unit tokens will be held within their own borders and audited, of course, but held within their own borders, pulled out of circulation, put into an escrow account within their own borders. And when we see not only the massive accumulation done again that we've been seeing, but like you said, the Bank of India purchasing 1.5 times what they did last year in the first 4 months, but bringing it home along with the 100 metric tons they've had since 1991. And it puts more into context about Saudi Arabia, Egypt, and the half a dozen African countries that repatriated their gold from the New York Fed just last month or the month before. These two locations, the New York Fed and the Bank of England, would give immediate access to the COMEX and the LBMA respectively. And so when we see these things happening, I talked forever about de-dollarization and about the BRICS and Saudi Arabia and all of these things coming together. What we are now seeing are these pieces being put together. And I don't think the all at once moment is upon us, but certainly the little by little is getting faster.
The price needs to be revalued according to the Dutch National Bank. If every one of these countries has been buying gold and accumulating it on their balance sheet, valued at $35 an ounce, mind you, in all of these central bank balance sheets, I think, yes, the price of gold would have to be either revalued or you would have to expand the gold market. But by seeing all of these countries bring their gold back and accumulate it in the levels that they are, I think it's massively bullish for gold. And when we talk about, to your point, the Treasury reserve capacity, look, the Treasury can be weaponized. Who the hell wants to hold treasuries anymore that are weaponized? And when you look at gold, it's outperformed the Treasury market for 50 years, just now doubled the performance over the last 25 years without the risk, without the geopolitical risk, the confiscatory risk, the sanction risk. So yeah, I do think it will be incredibly bullish for gold. And I also think if you read that white paper, they talk a little bit about the fact that what will start out as a common settlement currency, this unit, will turn into something valued more than just the gold value. It will have a supply-demand fundamental.
Bail-in legislation is inside of the new inside of the Dodd-Frank Act that says you are an unsecured general creditor of the bank, i.e. last to be paid. That it is a loan, you're making an unsecured loan to the bank when you deposit money. It is not, you're not depositing it, you're lending the money to the bank. And they also implemented money market gating in legislation in the Dodd-Frank Act because Lehman Brothers owned many or was running many of the money markets, and it's called breaking the buck. A show that I'm on every Tuesday, Liberty and Finance, Dunnigan Kaiser and I were talking about this publicly a few weeks ago, and he said he still has not received all of his money back from his money market that when it went upside down in 2008. Never got it back. He was gated. He could not get his money out. It went upside down. Lehman went upside down, never got all his money back. And when you talk about bail-in legislation, it is real. The banks in 2020 were told by the president and the Fed they could relinquish all reserve requirements. So just about every bank in the United States has virtually zero in reserves. They take the money that you give them and they would like to make loans, but we're not seeing much in the way of loans. So they buy treasuries with it and make the spread between what they give you and what they're receiving. This is how they got into big trouble, of course, by having all of those treasuries and then the Fed raising rates by 500 basis points. But bail-in legislation is real. And it basically says that if a bank goes upside down, anything over FDIC is gone and goes in to pay the indiscretions of the bank. And FDIC is a scam. There's 148 billion backing 18 trillion in deposits. People who buy cryptocurrencies, once they go in that door, they go one way and the gold folks go the other. The gold folks go for preservation and the others go for profit. And I think if you're in a position where you've made profit, the only smart thing to do would be to take some off the table and put it into something like gold or silver, where the biggest money and the most sophisticated, well-funded money in the world, the central banks, are buying it at a level the world's never ever seen. All the central banks own gold. They don't all own Bitcoin. And I think that is illuminating in a bigger picture.